Boom. Welcome. Welcome to the unemployment vlog. I missed yesterday's episode because I had some life stuff going on. Well, life stuff. I had to go anti-life stuff. I had to go to a funeral, and that took up most of the day getting ready for and hanging out with the family. And then I thought about recording an episode while I was there on my cell phone. And I was like, it would probably be rude. But all things worked out for the better because a D&D episode came out on my channel yesterday. Those things are very hard to watch because I don't edit them at all, so a lot of it's just raw audio of us sitting there playing D&D. A lot of fun to do, a little bit difficult to watch. Oh man, I can't even take a drink because I'm talking this whole time. Anyways, what I wanted to talk about today on today's episode is sharing things, dreams, and generally just don't let your dreams be memes, man. No, I listen to my friend's podcast. It's by George Collins, and it's called Whomst, like whom apostrophe ts, which is a very I really love the name, but I just wish he would have went the full distance with it with whomstahiv. And I don't edit these videos at all. If I did, I'd put up like a thing right here that would spell out the whomstahiv with all the proper apostrophes. But anyways, in his podcast, he discusses just like his track towards achieving his goals and how he wants to get there, and he actually wants to build an audience of people that enjoy the content he produces, or the jokes he's telling, that come to shows and support. He's a stand-up comedian, by the way, and they come to stand-up comedy shows to support stand-up comedy, and not because they're just friends with George Collins and it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go because my friend George is there, and it really doesn't matter if he does good or bad. He's my friend, and I'm just gonna see his stuff. And that's that's my general goal too with a lot of the things I do is I want people to like see something I produce and share it and like comment and subscribe all of that stuff, not because they're friends with me, because it's something that was actually enjoyable to watch, or inspired some type of emotion that they say, oh man, this inspired something in me, now I'm going to click and share it or do this. And that's going to be most of the subject for today. I've been thinking a lot on just emergent phenomena, and I guess I should explain that property. It's when it's emergence is like a study of systems, and more specifically, like emergent phenomenon is when things that are interacting together are able to come together and do something that no individual piece of that system is able to do on its own. So an example of this, and I was telling my brother about this, is like, think of an ant colony. An ant colony is able to have different societal periods where from the weather they can go through times of conservation where the ants will consciously ration food, and the colony will be more conservative with expansion and birthing and food production, or rather food consumption. There will be times when ants will go through colonial periods where they'll start colonizing other areas, or expansions. And the colony of ants are able to experience these political movements of their little micro society, even though no individual ant is capable of comprehending conservatism or colonization or any of those bigger concepts. But because of all their interactions and working together, they produce a phenomenon that not a single one of them is capable of. And I was thinking of this and how it plays out in other areas. And I mean, you could look at it generally in any aspect of life. Think of like a 18 wheeler pulling a truck bed. If any two molecules connected on that truck bed, any two atoms, a huge 18 wheeler pulling against them rips them in half. Just rips them in half. But when you have two of them, three of them, four of them, several billion of them all holding together, all that force on it, they're able to move and pull this along. Same thing with rope, string, yarn, one thread of fabric being tugged on can't move, like a 5-pound block. Well, it depends on the thread, but let's say 20-pound block, but if you have 2, 3, 4, it gets exponentially stronger, and you can move it, and those threads become capable of something they weren't individually capable of themselves. And you say, well, where does that come into play with sharing and all of that? Well, glad we can bring this back around now. A stand-up comedian, no good without an audience. Even just one person sharing his post, promoting, doing things like that, no good. But, you get 2 people doing it, you get 3 people doing it, you get 4 people doing it, like, hey, I saw this content, I liked it, like, he shared it to me, I enjoyed this, and don't let the ball stop there. It gets exponentially stronger the more threads you tie into this. So if you see something that anybody's doing, not just me, and it generally made you smile, take a moment, like it or share it. That's like common human internet decency right now. I think way too often we're accustomed to so much content being filtered, or rather being sent to us, that we forget to send it back out. There was one more subject I wanted to touch on before we get close to the 10-minute mark, but my brain's blanking, so we'll come back around to it later. Oh yeah, I remember. Patreon. So that's another thing. And Patreon is a whole different beast. I think I send like $11 to different people on Patreon per month right now. But I think that's a hyper interesting thing that, with Patreon and other aspects, like $1 on Patreon will get you so much content from so many different people. Because what a lot of people do is they've been making content on Patreon for maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years, and they have this Patreon only content, and simply giving them $1 will give you access to that backlog of all this other content they've created. But people won't pay 99 cents for a Patreon, or $1 for a Patreon contribution, or 99 cents for an app. But, they'll go out and, well, I mean, I don't want to be that person that's like, oh, they'll go get Starbucks or something like that for, $6. But, when you look at your expenses and what a lot of that does for somebody's morale, and just simply like investing in one person's Patreon, I have one person invested in my Patreon, and it is such a huge morale boost that says, hey, one person believes in what I'm doing. One person believes that I'm doing good work and is willing to pay for it. And because there's at least one person that does, I know somewhere out there there's another, and that inspires me to keep going. And that's a lot to do with, that comes back into sharing, as in when you share a content creator's work, not only are you helping more people see it if you did actually enjoy it, but then I'm telling you, whoever that person is, it's going to get a huge morale boost of like, oh man, this person saw this. Not only did they enjoy it, but they enjoyed it enough to, show their friends. Like, I'm gonna go do something else great so I can keep this person in good graces, or at least that's what goes through my mind. Anyways, that's the 10-minute mark. I try and keep these to 10 minutes because I feel like that's a good episode length. Thank you. Links in the descriptions for following stuff. I'll also put George Collins' podcast in the description if anybody wants to listen to it. It's Hoomst. It's a pretty good stream of consciousness podcast. Otherwise, thank you for listening. We'll see you tomorrow.